Hi everybody, thank you for tuning in and welcome to this YouTube video on how to pass your ATPL exams. So the guys at ATPLGS did a really good blog post on one of the Facebook groups talking about how to get through your ATPLs, and I just wanted to follow that on with a YouTube video just to talk about some of the techniques to be able to get you through. So don't forget, if you find this useful, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. So first of all, guys, massive thanks to the guys at ATPLGS for doing the initial post and putting it together into the group. I did a question bank review on their question bank recently. If you missed it out, check it out. It's there's a link on the top right of the screen for you to go and take a look at that. So in this video, I'll try to go through some of the, if you like, the practical nitty-gritty elements of actually getting through your ATPL exams. So if you're like me, when I was going through my ATPLs, I was working as well at the same time and also trying to hour build. And it was quite challenging to keep them all going. In case you missed it, check out the hour building app, link in the description, just to give you a bit of guidance in terms of how to structure your hour building to try and make it a bit simpler for you to get through and be more ready for your CPL skills test. So right, let's get straight into it then. Are ATPL exams hard? Yes and no. If you haven't prepared well for them, then yeah, they can be quite challenging. But I think if you prepare well for them, then most of the time it's okay. What tends to happen though is the exam questions are evolving all over time. So the key thing is to just try to get the most up-to-date information on your exams and to be using the materials that are most up to date at any given time. And I think if you can crack those things, put the work in, and then also, get your information to be as accurate and up to date as you can, then you've got a pretty good chance of passing. So like the video that I did in terms of how I got through my ATPLs in 8 months with a full-time job, blah, 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 blah. One of the key things is you've got to recognize that there is no shortcut to getting through your ATPLs. Someone sent me a message the other day saying, I'm trying to do my ATPLs. What's the easy way? Can I just learn a question bank, for example? I think all those days are pretty much gone now. You just have to accept that you're going to have to grind, get down and just work consistently. And the key thing is having a good amount of consistent work over a reasonable period of time, and then you will absolutely get through. The next question then is, how long should I study per exam? So I did my ATPL Theory with CATS, and we had 3 modules broken down into a number of different modules. You can check them out, the breakdown in the description. I would say take at least 2 to 3 months per exam. Some of the exams can be done in slightly shorter time, some take slightly longer. So if you like, the factual heavy exams tend to take a bit longer because there's a lot more material to cover, the likes of MET, operational procedures, AGK and so on. So the ones which are factually less heavy can be done a little bit sooner, like mass and balance, comms and so on and so forth. But the key thing is you've got to treat each exam with respect. If you think you're just going to waltz in there, then you'll probably just get a bad result, which you don't want. So another really important point that the guys at ATPLGS made was when you're doing your ATPLs, try not to take too long doing them. If you're on an integral full-time program, then it'll probably take you around about 6 months. If you're modular, doing part-time, then you're looking anywhere from about 8 months to 12 months to 18 months. The sooner you get them done, the easier it's going to be, just because the questions are constantly evolving. And what you don't want to do is to have to learn one method and then learn another method and then learn another method because the questions are evolving. The other thing also is the question banks tend to catch up with a new question. So when a new question pops up, it will take a little bit of time for the question banks to catch up, and then the question banks catch up, and then the CAA figures that out, and then they start to put new questions in. So ideally you want to take your ATPLs as soon as possible because you don't want too many new questions when you do them, because it just makes it much harder. Now I'm not saying just go and do the question bank the whole time, because that's not enough, but you get my drift where you need to balance the two in terms of, make sure you're absolutely ready, but don't take too long about it because there might be new questions which you've never seen, which completely throw you off. So the next question then is, am I ready for the exams? So what I used to do, again, I'll just share my experience, is I would set certain targets, or if you like, gates. So my target was 6 weeks before I wanted to sit the exam, all the material had to be covered and I'd had to have gone through it. And then the next gate that I'm going to be looking for now is about 1 week to 2 before the exam. And at this point, I would be looking to have done all the question banks a number of times, or the main question bank, which I was using 2 or 3 times. And I'll be looking for hopefully 80 or 90% average across, I'll be looking for 80 to 90% average in my results. If I wasn't quite there, then all I'll do is just delay the exam. The UKCA didn't charge you to push your exam out. And if I was ready a bit sooner, I went through the material a bit faster than I could, and I felt good, then you can also pull it in. But the important thing is, there's no kind of set way in terms of what works for me, might not work for you, but just find the sweet spot where you feel you've got enough information and you're willing to go. But just be really careful. If you're not ready, there's no point going and sitting exams. The problem with failing exams is, with COVID-19, jobs are already scarce. But when hopefully jobs come up again, our jobs are going to be really competitive to come by. So you want to try and give yourself the best possible chance of getting a job. And you can start by building the picture that you're actually a safe bet and a safe pair of hands because you've got solid ATPL results. So yeah, you won't be a risk on the type rating. So the next one we're going to talk about is the study resources. What study resources shall I use? The one thing I found, and I could be wrong, but I don't think there is any one provider now with the perfect material. Different providers, some are stronger in some areas, some are weaker in other areas. It just depends. But the one thing you can't do is just rely on a single provider. So the way I used to do it was I'll go through all my notes from CATS, and then to fill in the gaps, I'll then use either material from other sources like Go Online. There's a couple of links in the description to places where you can get an additional information like YouTube and places like that without sort of spending too much money on it. But yeah, the key thing is don't just rely on the material from your school, because although it can be good, the nature of the exams is that they're evolving all the time. So new things are creeping in as well. So the next one is, how many exams shall I take per sitting? So you've got 6 sittings and you kind of have to be tactical about this. You don't want to overload yourself where you're taking too many exams and finding that by the end of the second exam in a given day you've still got an exam but you're absolutely exhausted and then you perform poorly on it. You want to spread them out, but the other side of the argument is you don't want to spread them out too widely, because what will happen is, let's say you get to your 6th sitting and you've got 1 exam left. If you fail that exam, then you're knackered. I did my exams in the sequence of sittings or the sequence of modules that my school CATS had them, and they worked fine. So I basically had 3 sittings, and yes, just split amongst the modules as they were run, and that was okay. Others may decide to space them out a little bit. Do what works best for you, but whatever you do, do not leave yourself backed up against the wall for the last exam. And on the forum the other day, I saw someone ask, hey, what's an easy exam that I can do quickly and pass? The truth is, I don't think there are any easy ones left. Okay, mass and balance is supposed to be easy, but a lot of people have failed it. Comms is supposed to be easy, but a lot of people have failed it. So don't leave yourself with your back against the wall. So I touched on this a bit earlier, is use all the information available to you. And the amazing thing with Facebook now, with all the Facebook groups for the ATPL help, people are posting feedback on that all the time. So again, that's a really, really good tool to use. So the next question is, how should I use the question bank? For me, the way I did it was I'll go through the question bank 3 or 4 times, get my results up to a place where I'm happy, where I'm scoring between 90 and 100% on average, and then try and get the last 200 from questions that have been coming up recently. And that tended to work quite well for me. Have a look at the forum, speak to people and see which question banks are kind of nailing it, particularly people who've come out of exams. And yeah, just try and peg your risk, as it were. So the next part I'm going to talk a little bit about is revision strategy and kind of how to plan your revision. One of the weak areas I found during my ATPLs is nobody actually teaches you how to study, which is pretty bad because sometimes you're out of occasion for quite a while. If you want to, guys, check out my Skillshare class. There's a link in the description. Skillshare, I've currently got an offer for 2 months free. And in there, I just talk about some of the study techniques, how to organize your time, how to organize your workspace, memory techniques, and so on and so forth. And it may or may not be of help. So continuing then. So the important thing for however you decide to study is to be consistent. I used to target 3 hours a day. And I got through in about 8 months doing 3 hours a day, but I also made sure I took my breaks. The way I used to do it is I just used to split the time evenly between each module. So I'd maybe do an hour on each module each day. So I was coming back to each module every second or third day at the very latest. But just do whatever works for you. And then once I'd covered the material, or if I whizzed through material in a particular area and there was a big gap in another area, then I'll just use the time to kind of finish that gap as well. And when it came to using the question bank, same thing. I would always study the subject that I was getting the lowest marks in. So hopefully all your marks come up together at the same time for the module or the module or the group of modules that you're thinking of sitting at that particular one time. So yeah, broad outline of the timeline. I won't go through what you should do at the start. The key thing is just cover the material however you do it. But as I said, I used to count down from about 6 weeks before the exam, and 6 weeks before the exam, get the material covered, and then that gives you 6 weeks to get your speed up and go over the gaps using the question banks. 2 weeks before the exam or a week before the exam, I was looking for 90 to 100% average, and having done the question bank 2 or 3 times for the given subject. And that's what I would use. If I wasn't there, then I'll delay the exam, and if I was there a bit sooner, I'll pull the exam in. So now getting close to the exam, so the day before the exam, you're probably panicking a little bit. So now it's really important to try and organize your life and try and have as relaxed an exam sitting as you can. So a lot of people will probably have to travel for the exams, going to exam centers and so on. So don't get an Airbnb for like £5 a night or €5 a night while you're up all night because it's noisy and it's loud and you don't get a decent night's sleep. It's totally worth the investment to pay for a half-decent hotel, which gives you a good breakfast, which is close to the exam center, so you're not panicking about how to get to the exam center. So just try and have some common sense. I know the ATPL exams and flight training is expensive enough as it is, so you're going to be trying to save the pennies. But the problem is if you scrimp too much, you end up costing yourself more in the long run because you fail the exams and have to go back again, and all the stress and all the anguish that's associated with that. So yeah, just use common sense and just try to kind of plan your day leading up to the exam to be as stress-free and as hassle-free as possible. Well, the other, in terms of what study to do before the exam, don't do anything that's going to dent your confidence or make you unhappy. What I used to do then is just give a quick glance over the forum and then see what the latest feedback was, and maybe just look at 10 or 20 questions or something like that. But by this point, all the work's been done anyway, so it's just more of a psychological game to keep yourself calm. Guys, if you find this useful, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for tuning in and for supporting the video. Cheers.